Robert and the rest of the country, we're trying to subsidize that for you a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the problem is it's an inflation. We have rapid onset inflation over there because your hard-earned working dollars can't convince one of them to come join you now because there's free money everywhere. Anyways, welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez. Joining me tonight, live from in front of a bunch of reloaders and random stuff that caught in fire could destroy everybody. His
This is
company.
factually correct.
His company has a clean sexual harassment record because of his motto: "Don't hire women." It's Robert Wyatt.
Hey, all I'm saying, no women, no problems.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Don't knock it, try it.
I
And
mean,
then,
you don't have to pay for like, pregnancy and all that stuff if you just don't hire them in the first place.
correct.
I mean, that's what we call thinking. Although, stupid me, I should hire women because then I can get them like at a discount rate.
No. It just comes with problems. It's not
Yeah,
real.
that's
It's
true.
not real. It's not.
I mean, but they're only worth 70 cents on the dollar anyway. So
well, it depends on the looks. Also joining me, he's so frugal when he travels for a match. You can find him at the nearest men's shelter. It's Kevin Isaac.
Free meal's a free meal, man.
Kevin's favorite phrase to say: "This caught taken," and then he just pops right in. Anyways,
when Kevin wants to bring the wife flowers, he just makes a quick trip to the local cemetery. Make sure to
You're
take
not
off
eating
the
these anymore.
remembrance. I mean, they gave him to the people. They're dead. They don't care.
Nobody to file a police report for this.
you know what he does is he finds the person who's walking the fresh cut of flowers in, and then he stands next to the grave next to them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this was yeah, Jeanette was my grandmother." And I just come by every week or whatever. Well, God bless. I got another uncle I'm going to see. And right when they start walking away, Kevin does a quick little
like,
lap, comes
yoink.
by, yoink, takes him out, shakes him off. He's got his own plastic bag from Walmart or whatever. He just puts him in there. Coming home, baby. Coming
That's
home.
right.
I hope you like daffodils because that's what we got.
As long as you remember to take and remove that, like our condolences card and get that out of there, man. Did that one? Forgot that once. That was a bad night.
The
Confession through projection.
yeah,
Robert.
it's all projection, baby. I went out with the kids yesterday, and I went to the indoor range, and my daughter hasn't shot her Beretta 92 in a little bit, so we went through there and shot that, and it was great because she shot a little group, that big at 7-8 yards. She goes, "I can't tell where I'm hitting." I was like, "You're hitting right in the middle. You're fine." But they kind of get her used to it. We brought out the old MP5, and she goes, "I don't want to shoot that. That seems like a lot." Like, "Nope, you'll love it." And then she's just clicking off shots and clicking off shots. She goes, "I love this thing." And it's like, it's great. The coolest thing about one of those MP5s is an MP5 has so little controls to it, safety, magazine release, bolt, that like you can basically just show somebody this is how you do it, whatever, like that, and they can do it fine. But anyways, I was in the closet. Well, don't isolate that. Don't isolate that. Like, I really, you say something, then you're just like,
I can't take it back. It's too
I
late.
can't
now.
take it back. I was
Edit it
in
out
the
in post.
I was in the fix it in post.
We're
I was
not
in the
fixing shit.
I was in the closet going through some stuff, and my son Mike came in and was like, "All right, we're gonna go to the range, the indoor range tonight. You can pick one gun you can take with you." So he starts going through. He starts doing all the window shopping, and he goes and he opens it up and he goes, "What's this?" I go, "That's a Beretta PX4." And he kind of messes around with it, and I'm like, he goes, "I like this. I remember when you like stippled the grip." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And so like we take it out and I mess around with it, and I'm like, "Oh, the hammer spring seems a little light. We'll put in a new hammer spring." So we put in a new hammer spring, and I did extensive like polishing to that trigger system, so it's super super nice. And so it still felt nice, and he took it. And then so we took my daughter's like Samurai Edge Resident Evil Beretta I made for her, the my P2000, the PX4, and a new blaster that came along, which was this guy, which is a Beretta 92 FS Brigadier. So I kind of got this for myself. Last week I bought it, and the kind of story behind these things is like this was the first gun I ever bought. Oh, well, first handgun I ever bought. Bought a Mossberg 590 as my first gun, but this is the first handgun I ever bought. 92 FS Brigadier. Well, that came with the pinnacle of 1994 technology, which is the Hogue overmolded grips. which I used to hate these things, and then now grabbing them now, like it fills up my hand. I got a good purchase. It's pretty good. I'm like,
It fills it up even more than because I mean the nice thing about the Beretta grips, like the OG Beretta grips, is it was chunky enough that your hands just naturally wrapped around it.
oh yeah, well now we have more. So we have more on the side
dig
because
it.
they're overmolded, and then we have the finger grooves that cover the front strap. So wide it's bigger, and then back to front it's bigger too.
Yeah.
And so it's just like grabbing it. And I was just like, oh, gosh, I have some extra grips and stuff like that. I was like, I'll put those on. So I put on I took these off. I put on these grips that Kenny Terry had that he gave me after he got done with his Beretta and bought a 92X. And I put those on, and I had those on for a day. And then I was just like, let me go back and put those overmolded grips on, like keep it how I had it. And I put these overmolded grips on. I'm messing around with it. I'm just like, damn, boomers were onto something
Yeah,
here for a
these
second.
are like the New Balance shoes, right? Like, yeah.
Oh yeah,
You stop caring about looks, and you're like, this feels good.
it's like buying a pair of like walking Hokas with the gigantic soles, and they look a little weird, and you're just like, those are great shoes, like they feel fantastic, but you're like, they don't really have any style to them. These things are like negative style. Like if I said, oh, if someone recommended like what grips to get, and I told them get a pair of Hogue overmolded grips, they'd be like, this guy has no valid opinions. This guy's an idiot. But
this guy must go to the adult singles war.
he must. You guy's a loser. But like the original magazine release is very, very recessed under those big grips. So I put an extended magazine release on it, and I put a steel guide rod in it, but left all the springs and all that stuff in there. And it is not as nice as the current production Berettas, and the only reason it's definitely super well built. Like there's no rattle in it. It's fantastically built. But like the coating that they now use on the Beretta 92Xs and 92X performances, that NP, now I don't know if it's an NPD coat, whatever coat that they're using on it, it's like much more self-lubricating, and so like the trigger pulls and everything like that feel a little bit better. And it ships with the 20-pound hammer spring instead of the D spring, so it's definitely
it's going to light everything off.
It's going to light everything off, and it's going to be great. But the one thing that I was so happy to see is that they're harder to find nowadays, but the dust cover's flat. And so normally when you get like a newer Beretta that's non-rail, the dust cover will kind of slightly slope upwards in bit, and like it's kind of weird to find some of these like M9 style flat dust covered pistols, and it's pretty much looks like it has the bead blast on the slide, but it's pretty much like the exact gun that I bought back in 2003. And so
that's
like
awesome.
I'm super pleased with this thing. Like it's just good. It's got the 3-dot dovetailed in sights on a Brigadier slide, and it is.
Are you going to send that off and have the fiber put on the front like you did with your FS?
On a Brigadier, you don't need to send them off, because on a Brigadier slide, it's a dovetailed front.
So you can swap it.
It's a dovetail front.
Yeah.
So that's
easy, right?
So back in the day, they had the 92 FS M9 type slides that the front slide was milled out of the slide, and so you couldn't really do anything with those. And then like in the early 90s, they came up with the Brigadier slide, which was a reinforced slide for 40 cal and all that jazz. And one of the things that they did is they put in they flattened out the top of the gun, and then they put in dovetails for the front and rear sight.
Right.
And so you can you can now drift those out and put on night sights, because that was kind of a big deal back in the day to get night sights on the gun. So you can do that on this gun. So they have Dawsons and stuff you can put on it and mess around with, and Langdon will cut a Brigadier, but I have my Wilson Combat 92G brake tag.
So don't do it. Just keep it the way you bone stock, right?
Yeah, like I'm going to keep this, and then the only other thing I'll probably do to this is like a D spring and then maybe a set of sights. But
does it have a G decocker, or is it?
No, it's an FS. Like and it's the older slide, so it's the non-convertible. Like I could buy one of the new safeties that Beretta manufactures that allows it to turn G. But I've shot FSs for a long time, and it really does not bug me whatsoever. The only big time is like sometimes if you grab them, You can turn on the safety as you overhand manipulate it, but besides that, like it's no big deal.
So, what's now? I know this is not like a big USPSA gun, but what would be the manual of operations for that? Like for like taking the safety off
For
when
taking
you
the
go to draw, like after you've drawn.
oh, you
No,
on
you
a
start hammer down.
you just go on a Beretta 92F, like when you're carrying it or whatever like that, you just go safety on, safety off, and then you holster.
So is it swipe down to safety off?
It's swipe
Swipe
down,
down drops the hammer.
puts it on safe, and then drops the hammer. So how
Okay,
like
so
it has this safety has a roll bar in there, and then what it happens on a Beretta, oh, the Beretta has a hammer release lever right over here, and that roll bar pushes the sear forward and drops the hammer, but it also rotates the safety rotates the firing pin out of the way. And then you also
okay.
have the firing pin block. So it completely drops the hammer, and then it also pushes down on a pin when the safety is on.
So you're saying that won't go off in a holster?
No,
No, it's not a SIG.
I would say the Beretta 92F models, the FS models, like safety down, right, firing pins rotated out of the way. The sear can no longer be engaged, and then the trigger bar is actually pushed down, and it disconnects the trigger bar.
It's dead.
Yeah, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because the nice thing about the FS is when you drop the decocker, it drops the hammer. Perfect. The problem is that it doesn't come back up like you would want on the G decocker, which becomes an issue if you're doing slide stop reloads.
Yep.
Because somebody will come up over the top of it and they'll rack that to get it back into battery, inadvertently pushing the decocker down. And so the gun goes dead, and then they have to fiddle fart with it to get it back into action again. The G decocker is great. I love it because it also, apparently, they also took and they increased the angle of
on
it
the newer
just
slides,
slightly.
On the newer
so
slides.
And that actually helped to prevent the when you're actually trying to slide lock reload, it prevents it from dropping this. It's a really cool upgrade that was a long time coming. There's nothing wrong with what you have there. It's just one of those things that you just like, well, this is a thing.
Little improvement.
I wouldn't like this as much if it was as new, but like the newer Berettas with like the 10-degree increase on the safety lever, so they point just slightly farther upward, so when your hand runs over them, they want to run up
to keep it
inclined.
Up instead,
They're going to gain in altitude instead of sort of rotating down, and then all those slides are F to G convertible, but now Beretta basically makes all of them in a G. The standard is now the G instead of the F model, but like if you go from what the Army had in the 1911, where if you could dropped it on its nose, the firing pin could possibly set it off, and you had accidental discharges and all that stuff, and they come out with a double action 15 shot 9mm, where basically the one thing about the F is you put that bad boy on safe. Like if you had a steel base plate on a magazine, like you could build a house with the thing. Like it is the 92 FS is quite possibly one of like the safest handgun that you could sit there and operate from. I mean, it's a marvel. Like these guns, like Beretta's not my favorite manufacturer, but the 92 series, I mean, especially the slide mounted safety decocker, the 92 series, those are my favorite guns, and they'll always be my favorite guns. And I go around, I mess with the triggers of the guns I still have, and I'm like, gosh dang, I know what I'm doing with this thing. I'm just super happy. Like I would love to just try to squeeze out the last little bit of percent I need in production to get a GM card with one of these things. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So they are fantastic little blasters.
That's the only thing I was telling you when you showed it earlier. I like that gun. Like I like that gun a lot. I just don't like the barrel, and I absolutely loved it when
the look
the
of the barrel.
No. It's the extension. It's that little tiny half-inch.
The look of the barrel sticking out the front. I think it looks weird too. I don't know why, but
when they put the threaded barrel in the 9A4, it looked awesome. When Langdon actually cut it back and put that crown in it,
the 4.7.
It was perfect. It was just the best. I just thought it made that gun just look so aesthetically pleasing, and I loved it.
So the funny thing is like with the protruding barrel, like because of all the ones out of all the guns I've owned, half of them have had the 4.9 inch barrel like this one, and the other ones have had the slide fit 4.7s. And when the nostalgia part of me, when I see a new one, I go, oh, that thing's all the new ones are 4.7s, and I look at those and I go, great. But when the nostalgic part of me looks at like Resident Evil guns or Lethal Weapon or Die Hard, and I want a little bit of that vibe. Like you point the barrel slightly out of this thing, and I'm just like, that's a damn Beretta. Like,
If
and
Beretta, oh sorry, I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say if Beretta had just simply, because right now the crown on that it's just radiused over. If they'd cut it flat and then like actually put a good looking crown in there, I'd be much more okay with it.
Yep.
But it's just how it just kind of like radiused back into itself, like it was an incomplete thing. And I get it. It totally is like an aesthetic thing. I know that, but I just
there's
I
so
just
much
like
like
it.
if you look at the front of the slide, like there's so many like hard angles, and then you get that front barrel where it just sticks out, and then it's rounded. You're like, this doesn't fit here.
Yeah.
So
Your feng shui is off.
So the
Yeah.
funny thing about these barrels, the the M9 FS barrels, so the crown is actually recessed deeper inside the barrel to protect the crown, and then you had like a chrome moly barrel like you would on an M4.
Okay.
So you basically have these barrels that would just shoot. They're not as accurate as a stainless barrel, of course, because they're so much harder that like the bullet doesn't form as well in the barrel. But like it's just a freaking awesome pistol. Mike was holding the USP and I was holding this, and I'm just sitting back there holding like these two guns that I just loved the dickens out of when I was a young man. I'm just like, this is freaking awesome. Like these guns, both of these guns are damn well awesome. And so if next year one of these comes around and I still want to dick around with one, I'll send one off to Langdon to be cut for a plate. But like this, I freaking love this 92 Brigadier, and it's just a nice, pleasant memory. I never knew too much about the Brigadiers when I actually owned one back in the day, and I would look at pictures of it and be like, dude, why does my Beretta look so effing funky compared to all these other Berettas? And then you realize it's like, oh, because yours is much more special. And then it was just like, yep. And no bevel whatsoever on the magazine well, because real men, they just put a square box. And then you're like,
Eventually,
in a square box.
I'll get it there.
Let me
I'll
dig
get it
up
there.
these speed lifts a little bit.
Yeah, my old 92 FS that I used to compete with, I literally took a bunch of files, some like round files, and opened that bad boy up, and it looked like dog crap for a long time, and then I got the whole thing refinished, and then like you really have to look to see that it was hand beveled and opened up. But I'll tell you what, aluminum frames and steel files, you can get a lot of work done quick, kids. I would not press too hard. Don't press too hard. You're just like, oh wow, this ain't gonna take no time at all. Anyway.
Man, I was doing on the DWX, right? So I've been pushing hard this season for practice anyways, right? But like I chewed up my finger, right? Like I was changed my draw stroke. It's more efficient now, but the corner of that like trigger guard was just 90 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And I'd cut myself up and was bleeding. I had to tape myself, and I'm very much like it's a tool, right? Like, so I don't feel bad doing stuff to it necessarily, but like that gun is a pretty nice gun. It's a nicer pistols I have. I'm like, do I want to take a file to that? And then finally Leo's like, yeah, you should do it. I'm like, fine. So we went and took a file. That frame is hard, right? Like I had to press hard just to take anything off with the file. And then I tried to cold blue it. Not very well. It's like, I don't know, it's got to be like a stainless alloy or something like that they've DLC coated or something, but it didn't take much bluing, but it also doesn't cut my hand open anymore. So that's a plus.
Well, and that's the thing. Like over time, if you hang on to these and shoot these guns long enough, you're eventually going to wear the coating off, and you either kind of just have to accept that it's going to happen, or go through and like hard chrome it or Cerakote or something like that. But I mean, we pull these guns out of the holsters so much they're just going to get worn on.
Yeah, the work guns, it almost kind of doesn't matter. Like the guns that you really shoot a whole lot. Like if that finish wear gets chewed up or I have to file on something, it doesn't really bug me because it's going to be dead in a couple years anywhere from use. But the one thing about that DWX, does it have the narrow trigger guard?
So it fits the same holster as the Shadow 2. So I don't know. Like I never owned a Shadow. I don't know how wide it is.
Is it the Shadow 2's size?
Yeah, it was. So if like
It
I have
is
the
because I
Ghost
thought the
holster,
lower
right?
was the Shadow 2.
Yeah. So it's like the Ghost holster for the Shadow 2, which like it goes right around the trigger guard. It
Right.
fits that perfectly. It's a Shadow
Okay.
2 holster that I use, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the only thing that you change is like the cover, the kind of Kydex cover, if you will, that goes over it. You have to like widen those holes out to bump it out a little bit, just because it slides a little taller.
Right.
But like that part of the trigger guard is what's cutting you up. And
Not
then
anymore.
yeah,
Took a file
not
fit.
anymore. Yeah, it's funny that like you get narrow kind of like sharp edges on spots like that. And I know it probably cost them, some labor to go in there and round that out or melt that edge a little bit like that. But like that's something with some of those narrow trigger guards. Like they're
But
either
especially if you like,
narrow and sharp.
if you look at guns like, because I think the Shadow 2 is the same way, right? And that gun and the DWX, they're like competition guns, if anything, right? So if people are going to be ripping reloads or draws and all that, like you'd think they would go from the factory and round those things off, because it doesn't take a lot of rounding, right? Like we're not talking taking a bunch of material here, just a little kiss to remove that sharp knife edge.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say probably just learn how to hold the gun. That's kind of CZ's attitude on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Just like, because like a 2011 is cool because you can build the gun around your hand. A CZ is like build your hands around the gun.
Well, I mean, that's like, I love that grip on the DWX, right? Like I've always thought the Shadow with the palm swell grips on it, that magwell, that's a nice filling gun. I like it.
Yeah,
So
100%.
But speaking of which, I'm switching back to the Canik. So I did accomplish my goal. I just want to shoot a couple majors with LO.
It's great, baby. It just ain't working out. It's a me thing.
Well, I'll go shoot it again, I think, right? Like my goal was to get some points, if you will. Maybe I can get a slot for LO Nats like next year, depending on how they do it. I think my dominant will still be carry optics, so I'm gonna switch my gear. Well, set up my second belt now because I got a whole new belt, so I can have just one setup for the DWX and one setup for the Canik. So go back to that. But I'm not kind of taking it off season. This week I haven't touched a gun. I haven't dry fired, which it's a necessary break for me. I know people push hard all the time, but man, like since like March 1st, I've dry fired every day except for maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday if I'm not shooting a match. And then like if I was gone for work, but then even halfway through the season, I got that aim.
That's that little
trainer thing.
grip
so I was
keeper
dry
gun or
firing,
whatever.
at the hotel and stuff. So I'm ready for a season break here to just cool down. We'll see. I still miss shooting. I got home on Friday or Thursday night from traveling, and I was like, Caps is having a match. And I'm like, no, take a break.
Yeah, the one thing about going back to that thing, like, I don't know, like I would say what the DWX is what, low 40s in weight? Is it 50s?
So empty mag, it's like 52.
Now we're transitioning to the light gun, the Canik Rival.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going back to the Canik, and I've always liked the weight of the Canik, right? Like, so I could get brass grip panels for it, but I like the weight, the way it sits right now. It's like, I think I'm like 45 with an empty mag. So to me, that's like a good sweet spot. It's not too heavy, transitions well still, but heavy enough that it settles out good and, kind of odd and strong hand weekend positions. So
yeah. Do you think you could take the Canik into LO and just run it that way with the magwell?
yeah. Oh, I'm sure I could. It was partly like a business thing. So I made the DWX rod and had somebody else do testing for me before I initially kind of started shipping them. And then I'm like, well, they're selling good enough that kind of makes sense to just put a few more rounds downrange, because it's my thinnest guide rod, right? So that the hard tungsten, that's where I start to worry about it. I've had zero issues with it, so that's but it's just how my brain kind of wants to make sure it's a good product. And so like, well, I'll get one, it'll be fun to shoot, and it's not like a bad gun or anything, right? So just have it, keep it to shoot occasionally. Maybe I'll let my daughter shoot it. She really wanted to shoot it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should give it to her. She was very insistent that she get that.
She's like, this is way better than a Glock.
It's funny because like you'll have a girl who's not even 100 pounds shooting a gun that's like 2%, 2.5% of her body weight.
Right.
I'm holding 2 or 3% of my body weight out there. That like sounds like a workout. It's like when you're breaking
It
it down,
does.
they're like take you're gonna take 5% of your body weight. You're gonna extend it. If you can do that, then move on from this.
Well,
And
then
that's
you put a full mag in it too, right? Like,
oh yeah. Yeah, it's not 50 ounces with 10 rounds of 9mm in it. It's 50 ounces with 23 rounds of 9mm in it. Like
no,
it's
it's 52 with no rounds of 9mm in it, right?
60
So
ounce gun.
you put in a full mag of 9mm in there, you're what? I don't know what's 20. It's like because I can do 24 plus 1 with a DWX, so it's
Jeez.
a hefty gun.
Yeah, mine with an empty mag is 54 ounces. And so I could imagine. I mean, and you certainly can feel the difference on the bottom end when you've only got a round or two left in there. So I could imagine it's.
But it's a good gun. I capped off my season well. So I was at Red Rock last weekend.
Oh, do
Is that
you
right?
have positive things to say about Red Rock Rumble? Did you have anything pleasant?
Hey, listen, I didn't have to RO my whole crew and deal like bless Robert's heart, like his crew that he was ROing with were
like I've said it
capped off the
before.
weekend well.
when they say something like when they say
No,
like
they got
Afghanistan,
really, really good. I mean, once we figured it out, I mean, the first bit, it was like trying to figure out and who looks at what, but once we got it figured out, it was actually it was a pretty good setup. I was happy.
How many people did you DQ on your squad on that unloaded start? Any?
Nobody got DQ'd.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
nobody.
that's the old Robert thing, is like what we could have done and what we did are two different things.
Well, I guess my real question is, I can't remember if I was telling this when I was checking in at Red Rock. There was a gal who was checking in, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to shoot appendix," and I was like, "Hey, just so you know, think about this, and then go read this article by Troy about what the front of the gun means, and plan accordingly."
Yeah. No, there was the things that would have DQ'd people. Obviously pointing the gun beyond the 180 that we had established for the stage, and since I know the match director is going to listen to this, I'm not going to say how many. But then there was a handful of people that. So we did stage 2, then stage 3. When we went up to stage 3, didn't understand that when the gun is holstered, it has to be, if you have a loaded firearm, because you could unload it if you wanted to, or you could just holster the gun up and then go up to what was stage 3. They would try to holster a gun that didn't have the safety on per their division, or the hammer would still be back in carry optics, and I'd be like, "Hey, what are you shooting? Carry optics. Oh, the hammer has to be down. Oh, okay." And then they'd fix it. But yeah, there was a good chunk of people that, for whatever reason, just never really understood that. But how often do you have like a stage 1, stage 2?
Yeah, I've just got to the point now where I always just treat that as I unload, show clear, and then when I get there, I'll make ready again, right? Because it's part of my routine, right? Like I do set things just because it's the same every time.
Well, and you'll catch stuff too. You'll catch stuff when you do that. Like it's best to just clear it out and even take some of those magazines that were in between those stages and just get them off your belt. Like just take the fresh ones in there, because we've all learned not to put half-loaded magazines on our belts. And then you go into
I keep relearning that.
You go there and then you're like,
you know what the word learn means, Robert?
No, apparently not.
I've made ready or whatever like that, or I should have this amount of ammunition in the gun. And then you get there and then you're like 87% through the stage and you're like at slide lock, and then you're just like, and then your poor brain has to go, oh, there's no malfunction here. The gun is empty. Let me go ahead and burn my time.
Is between your ears.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, Tommy, there was a really interesting one. Just exactly what you guys are talking about. How going back to what is zero. I had a couple situations where a guy, he had a race holster, and so he finished stage 2, and then he'd prepare the gun and he'd put it back into his holster and he'd lock the holster because he's moving forward. But then he'd forget to unlock the holster. and he'd get there, and so timer goes off, beep, and I don't do race holsters, so I wasn't really paying attention to it until after these guys had done it a couple times. But he'd go off and he'd start doing that kind of like that tugging thing, trying to get it out, and he's like, turn the holster off. So that makes sense. I mean, like, just start back at 0.
Yeah. Strip it, unload it, and go back to 0.
But I ended up, I thought the match was great, right? Like, flowed well. I know there were some other people who had some flow issues, I think, on the top end stages. I think it was that as a split stage, but I ended up starting on day 2 on that, right? Like, it was 17 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started there, so we didn't have any backup, and then we were clear of that the rest of the day. But I think they were still shooting some of the latest people. But good stages, good flow, fun match. Ended up taking second in LO.
Nice. They looked great. The stages looked fun. Like, everything looked fantastic. Yeah, like Robert said, just little growing pains on getting the stuff, getting that flow going. But like, yeah, I mean, you look at the math and when on a match, and you look at like the stages and the assets, and like, to everyone's credit, like, they always try to like let's get some more shooting in here for the money. If we do this right, it can get there. And I remember doing it at Magnus. You know, they had a 2-stage one. One required you going prone and then getting up and then going over and shooting on a balance beam or something like that. And I just remember just being like, ooh, man, it was good that was shot over 3 days with half-day schedules. You know, because if it wasn't, like, you could start seeing some of the backups. And so, like, I think, and that's one thing that I haven't really seen a whole lot of anymore for a while, is the half-day schedules. When you're looking at stuff, I haven't heard anyone bringing up a half-day schedule in a minute.
You see them at nationals. Yeah. Nationals have half-day schedules.
Yeah.
At most matches, the half-day schedule works because you're able to shove more people into it, and so you can get more people in. So morning, afternoon, mornings, like that. But at most matches, it just works better to that, and you also don't have as many days for it. I mean, to do the morning afternoon thing, you got to split it up a little bit more. I don't know. I don't think the half-day schedule is bad, but you usually only see it at nationals.
Yep.
Well, I'm thinking about getting the occluded dot cover to shoot with. Man, some of those bays, just that early morning sun, right? Like, you turn and go directly into it. And there was, so, you know, after the match, I'm kind of doing like post analysis, and you go through the score. I'm going through the scores and going, okay, like, let's look at this stage. Why was I, you know, as far down as I was? And then I go look at the match video. I'm like, oh yeah, because when you drew your gun and pointed at a target, you're like, hello, is there a dot here? Oh, I think that's that little pink thing. Yeah, that's it. Bang. Oh, it's gone now.
That was the same stage that I had the first time ever double dot on an SRO. I'd never seen it before.
That was the worst. Like, that morning sun was literally directly behind that target.
On that target,
yep. Right there. But,
you know, like, I've been screwing around with that VP9, you know, shooting that VP9 with that Steiner MPS on it. And the cool thing about that Steiner MPS is on the front, the angle of the glass, and then you have kind of like an over, like, sunshade kind of at the front of that MPS.
Yeah.
It really kind of keeps that light. Like, I'll take off something like, and I noticed especially, even in like a well lit room or with a window, taking something that has that huge window like that Siley bowl out, and then with that MPS, it's the clarity and the reflections that you get in the glass on the MPS are almost like zero. And what you get off of like the delta points and like the Siley or whatever like that, like, you start picking up a lot. And this is what I realized with the MPS. It's not that the glass on the MPS is so much better. It's the light noise coming into the MPS is so much smaller. And some of these enclosed optics, like, it looks like, oh, everything's so much clearer, everything's so much nicer. It's like, no, like, what's coming in the front or coming through the back is very seldomly making it to that second pane of glass. And then there's all this shadow and shade in the middle of there, and it just makes them look so much cleaner and crisper and less chance of a dot popping out or going somewhere on it. And
well, I mean, there's a reason with cameras that we use lens hoods, because it just cuts down the light that's actually hitting that glass, and it makes everything it just makes it appear better, so it makes sense. All I know is I might be purchasing cover from Vince at Stonebridge Gunworks.
The clip-on one that's a nice setup.
Yeah. I after Barry's, I was like, okay, I should probably do that. I'll
Just
figure
to
out
have
how to
it. Just have it as an option.
I'll have it. I'll have it in my bag, and when I need it, I'll just be like, boop, and it works so well. I saw so many people that use them. It clips on, and it just seems when you need it, you need it.
Yep.
And on that stage, wow, you needed it.
You needed it. Yeah.
Yep. Well, it's just time. It's just I don't even know. Does Canik even make plates for enclosed optics like the 509?
They make plates for everything. I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked specifically at the 509, but like the Rival comes with
6 plates,
9
4 plates, and they have
don't
like
know.
6. I think mine. I remember when I got mine, it came with 4 plates, and they had 6 plates available, but like a few of them
Yeah,
they
so
don't
the
ship.
Rival, like the steel frame Rival, comes with I think 5 plates.
Wow.
And there's one you can get that's for like a shield, the narrow shield RMS footprint that doesn't come with it or something like that. But
what do they call it? RMRSC or
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
RMSC.
But it's got like SRO, Delta Point, the Seymour, like it just
all
comes
the
with
major
it, right?
ones. Yeah, it comes
all the
with
major ones. It comes with, meaning it's literally in the box, not send your voucher in and get it. It's in the box.
box and screws. Yep. No, it's
So here's a question. So who, like today, who's doing hard chroming of guns? Because I mean Impact, but the place that we sent it to there, that guy died. So who's actually hard chroming guns now?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
If anybody knows,
Canik's
let
from
me
the
know.
factory.
Because I want to hard chrome another gun.
Yeah, Canik's got the hard chrome from the factory, which that's my backup gun. I got to go revisit it, see if it can be a primary gun. It cleans so nice. Cleans up so nice.
Yeah, I absolutely like the hard chrome. It just, man, it's just perfect.
Yeah, hard chroming. But yeah, like I would say it'd be worth it for almost anybody if like you have a carry optic setup, just get an enclosed dot to kind of mess with it because like, it's not just the rainy day, but like the awkward evening and morning shoots, like having a backup gun or something that has the enclosed dot on it, like it's really freaking helpful. It is really helpful to get that dot. You can also get a dot dimmer, so it's less starburst out with less consequences onto the targets. And so I think
I've got the EPS carry, from HoloSun.
Yeah.
That's on my shield, and I really quite like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an enclosed one, so.
Yeah, you got like a 509 on something too, don't you?
I'm pretty sure I do. I can't remember what it is, but it's so dumb. I've got so many dots right now. It's like I have more dots than guns to put them on.
Oh, I won a dot at Barry's. I got the
RTS or
no, what is the Shield RMS XL or something like that?
Oh, the big one.
The big one, yeah. It's a small footprint, but it's the big one. But I don't like it. It's auto adjusting dot, and not everybody has this, but like I see the refresh and like screens and stuff really well. Like maybe that's part of my career, but when I look at that dot, it's flickering, like seizure-inducing flicker. Like my wife doesn't see it at all.
30 frames per second for me, like 30 hertz. I look at that and I think this is like a freaking banquet dinner of a product I'm eating right here. Like I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. Like It's like I see 30 FPS and I'm just like, can we bump this up? And that you can tell you're getting bad when you see 60 hertz per second and you're just like, oh, it's only 60 hertz. I guess I can touch it. But like, yeah, you can see that in the dots.
Yeah, I mean it's okay once you get up into like the higher brightness, it's not as bad. So I don't know if they're doing some sort of like pulse width modulation type of adjustment there that changes the on pulse or something. But I don't know if I like it, so it's on my shelf. But I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Well, the Vortex, the new Vortexes, when they came out, they had that flicker problem. Steger was talking about this.
Yeah, I heard that.
And then they fixed it. And so I'm wondering if you got a hold of tech support or whomever and just said, hey, I'm seeing this thing.
Maybe
what's up?
Fix for it.
Maybe
that's true.
Maybe they figured it out.
It's probably worth reaching out to them to see. Like,
yeah. Well, at least more guns are coming. Like you could sell that on the market now because there's someone buying that new CZ PO9, PO7 Nocturnes, and
Yeah,
those
that
are
comes.
direct cut for that footprint. And so like
Yeah,
you could put that on there and just be like, there you go, boys. Like go onto a CZ forum, throw it on there, and those guys will scrounge that right up.
eat
Oh,
it
I
up.
got the
I mean, the
big gun.
glass is clear and stuff, right? The dot looks pretty good. So I mean, it seems like a fine dot, right? Just it's doesn't jive with my eyes, my internal refresh rate.
It's a fine dot for ordinary people, for
Sure.
ordinary shooters. I would say with that. So generally, there's a handful of those dots that are being used because the person shooting the dot also wears a shirt with their name on them.
Right.
So and like I know Canik has their sets of dots, and I'm not sure who's actually manufacturing their dots for them, but like
I've heard okay things where, oh, that's the other thing that I really dislike about it. It's got the battery on the bottom. You have to unmount it to change the battery. I'm like,
I do not mind that. I do not mind that as much. The
I
battery still
hate
lasts
it's
that.
forever.
probably fine for like a carry pistol or something. I don't know, but it's just, I don't know. It's like, I'd
If
rather
it
have
lasts
access.
if it lasts for like 30,000 hours and you get a lower deck height, and the trade-off is you take your expensive torque screwdriver and take that off and swap the battery and then torque it back onto the so like it basically maintains zeros. It's
Yeah, on
not a
the
big deal.
lugs.
Like I would always take a lower deck height for the problem is shifting the battery because as we want covers and plates, we raise the deck height because you're putting
Yeah,
something under the battery so it's not pushing through, and then you're putting a screw attachment on top of the battery that makes for the cover. Like,
yeah.
I know everybody like you want the most convenient battery changing. The Delta Point Pro has the most convenient battery changing. It even has a magnetic cap. And what does
I don't
everyone
know.
bitch
That
I
about
think
with
that
that
the
thing?
vortex is
Vortex
pretty cool. That
won
vortex
it now.
The
is probably the winner right now.
the Vortex you still have to unscrew.
No, you
No,
don't.
On the Defender ST, I got one of
the
those.
XL. The
The
XL
giant
has
XL.
a lot. It's like a lever and then a button or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's got the it like pulls it out, but then there's a sliding lock that holds it down, and then it pulls and it pops open, and it's
Does it
slick. It works really
does
well.
it hold the battery for you when the cover pops up?
Yeah, it's got something that
There's the magnet
I
on
want
the
to say it's
Delta
a
Point
magnet or
that pops
something. I don't
up,
know.
but like you
Mhm.
still get the freaking gigantic deck height from all that stuff. So just
The
convenience
Vortex
comes at a
that
cost.
Vortex XL that's really a great optic. I don't know how much I'm going to. Well, I say I'm taking an off season, but I mean realistically, I won't. As soon as the shooting starts, actually that's not true. As soon as the match starts in 2 weeks, I'll be there because I got a new camera, and so I want to use the camera. But I'll actually be shooting the. I'm going to shoot that Vortex a bit and see how it runs, and I kind of don't want to like it because I have a lot of money invested in the SROs that are direct milled. And so I'm like, I really don't want that to be a winner. But right
Well,
now, when I use it, I'm like, it's a nice optic.
the
Yeah.
only thing I see about that XL that kind of is like a little weird for me is how forward the cantilever is on that thing. Like
Yeah,
it's
I don't know
just
if that matters if you cut. Well, let's see. I don't know what are you putting it on your shadow,
Yeah, Shadow 2.
and is it cut for that directly, or you have a plate?
I actually didn't realize it has a plate, but somebody told me, I might have been Dave Blanton, said that you can actually, it actually can mount directly to the Shadow 2, which is from the initial holes there. So I haven't had time, but I'm going to take that plate off and see if I can just, plop it straight
Yeah.
on.
I
Yeah.
just because you're right. Some of those pistols, like I think, what was it? Steger was talking about that on. It's so far forward that it just gets blasted with different pistols, right?
Yeah.
yep. And
Yeah. The only problem with the Vortex, I think, is just it's my complaint against everything. The SRO aesthetically just looks good. I'm all about the aesthetics of these things, and so I think it just looks great. The Vortex, the Holo Suns, that just that square cut, I just think doesn't look great. It belongs on a Glock.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't have a good visual appeal, but the dot looks nice.
I
And,
love
Yeah,
the
yeah,
square optics.
100%.
The big rounded optics. Like I look at that Romeo 3 Max or whatever, and I'm like, good gosh, what the hell is this thing? What is this thing?
it looks better. It looks better to me, right? Like Again, I'm very much a kind of function over form, so I'll throw that defender on whatever. I don't really care if it looks ugly or not. But
I'll do it, but it's gotta look good. I mean, that's one of the things I love about the Shadow 2. It's just a great looking gun. 1911's great looking guns. Beretta's great looking guns. A Glock is utilitarian and it works, and you know that it's going to work, from morning till sunrise or till sunset. But there's nothing special about it. It's just a Glock. And if that's what you want, then by all means, go have fun. But the aesthetics of life still mean a lot to me.
Not to me. I shoot a VP9 with an MPS on it. But if you want to look good, make sure that you have the right belt. Head on over to Dominate Defense. Use promo code PARA10 and save 10% off your order. Get the best concealment belts over there at American Operator Gear and the best competition belts over at Dominate Defense. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off your order. Also, check out Rune Tactical. Get a +1 in that gun. So, like you DWX shooters, you get your freaking 25 shots. Your Shadow 2 owners get 25 rounds in the gun. Do all that fancy fee stuff that you love so much because you just can't stop spending money on this sport. But now you can there's another place you can do it. Rune Tactical. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off your order. And now Kevin's going to freeform his own commercial for W74.
I mean, come get some weight. You got that new Beretta. I got a guide rod for it. You can give it a shot. Get a couple ounces in there. I actually think it's 1.5 ounces, but add some weight. Get some lights if you want, or some batteries if you want, and use the same promo code PARA10 for 10% off.
Absolutely. Like really, just your DWX ain't heavy enough. Go over there and see Kevin. He'll hook you up. He'll get that bad boy up to the legal limit. You thought you couldn't get it's just like an alcoholic. I never thought I could get that drunk. And then they pull up and it's like, no, I don't think it's ever happened, but man, do I want to crown the person king who finally goes and gets his gun inspected and it doesn't make weight. It's too heavy. Like once we've passed that point, everybody.
I could get there, I think.
I could get there very quickly.
Just a flashlight with a couple batteries in it, and you're over.
Yeah, it's not even a question. I could get there. Either I could put a magwell on it, or I could do just a flashlight without even the W74 stuff in it. A flashlight would put me over. But I mean the gun right now, the gun took all of the crap I did to it to get the balance where I just happen to like it. But I mean, I've shot my stock one, the one that's basically stock, and I shoot it just fine. But
yeah, somebody was asking me today, what I was shooting. I was telling them about the DWX and stuff, and then I'm like, I'm not a picky person, right? Like I know there's people who are more picky about the gun, but I don't know, my Canik shoots fine, right? Like my polymer, going back and I shot my polymer Canik, I'm like, I don't know, this is fine. It's lighter, but the dot still stays in the glass. So what do I need here?
Yeah. Yep. And I'm not good enough for it to make a difference one or the other. I just know that I've got the gun where I like it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go with this. I'll just shoot this gun because I've been shooting it shooting CZ since 2016, 2017, and I don't see myself changing because I just like the gun.
I see you changing to another one, Shadow 3.
I want to know what they're going to do to it, because the Shadow 2 kind of just feels great right now. I understood when they went from the 01 from the 1 to the 2, it was a big change, but what are you going to do? Do a bolt barrel or something? Make it more like a Tanfo? Is the gun going to get so much more accurate? The gun was already stupid nose heavy. The best gun, according to the best CZ gun right now, according to Andy Erickson over on Not Another Shooting Show, was his tax board, and he says that thing he thinks that's cheating. It's that good of a setup, and so I just don't know that there's anything so great and wonderful. I say that knowing full well that I'm wrong on most of these things, but right now
they'll come up with something, right?
I would like to see a standard CZ75B model with checkering, steel frame, checkering, good grips, an additional magwell, slide serrations on the front, firing pin block, but with with the almost a mega trigger, like just put a firing pin block it for everybody, you know, nice hammer on it, and not a rail, but a reinforced kind of weighted front end dust cover. Like if you got something like what is that, the AZ01 or whatever like that, that $3,000 or $4,000 CZ75 they have. If they
Yeah.
just made a standard CZ75 model in like a 4.5 inch or 5 inch gun and just kind of dress it up with all the features, that would be really nice. The secret of the CZ catalog is not in the Shadow 2. If you've ever shot a steel framed, plain non-railed CZ75 in all steel with some good sights or whatever, those things are freaking phenomenal. They have nice, soft, rolling double actions. They have good single action triggers. And they're right at that high 30 ounce, almost 40 ounce if you want to get them up to it. And the ergonomics on the grip are fantastic. They are as well balanced of a handgun that you can get from the factory. They don't say USPSA or IPSC all over the box, but man, before the Shadows came out, people could screw around with those things and you would have these fantastic pistols. Like they balance, they point, they shoot, they're a little bit thinner. Like it is a really cool gun, especially for like newer, younger shooters. But if you want something that you can like, it's a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter, the concealed carry and shoot around with, those things are freaking awesome.
Have you looked at was it the Shadow 2 compact or whatever? They changed anything with that internally, or
It's just a smaller gun.
Yeah.
is it with the aluminum frame? I didn't know if
there's nothing more special about it, honestly. I don't know who the market is for it. Maybe IDPA. It just, the gun weighs so much. I just don't know why you'd want to carry it from a concealed carry standpoint.
I know a bunch of coworkers that when I talk to them and they talk about what guns they would like to get, I've never seen one of them shoot in a match, sign up for a match, or know exactly what the rules are for a match. But when they talk about guns, they like CZ Shadows. And that CZ Shadow 2 compact is for like
about 30 ounces. So yeah,
it's still pretty decently heavy, but like they're going for that Shadow 2, and that's they have a bunch of competition oriented guns, but like those guns, like that gun is marketed as take the marketing for that gun is take what everyone is using in competition and now have it for concealed carry. Like that's
Sure.
what they're doing. So like regular Joe goes in there, sees Eric Graffel and goes, "Who's this guy? Oh, he seems really good. Oh, he shoots the big gun in competition. The small gun must be good enough for me for concealed carry."
right.
And then it's just like, dude, there's like 3 other guns in that catalog that are better for concealed carry for you. Like you don't even have to switch the web page, bro. Like there's things there, like a standard, PO, what is it, the PO1?
Yeah.
Like PO1's a great gun. Like you can have that. Get a steel frame PO1, be fantastic. It's got
Well,
a
I mean,
firing pin block.
if you want a 75 series, the 75 compact was
Oh
a
my gosh.
great pistol. I don't know if they make them, but they're hard to
They
find.
still make them. The steel frames are unobtainium. So you can find
Yeah.
an aluminum frame one, but the steel frame CZ75 compact, that thing is unobtainium. That thing is a freaking like steel framed 4-inch
Right.
barrel Glock 19 size CZ75.
Yeah, because they had the
Slick.
PO1, but that had the Omega trigger in it, and that's great if you want something that's just long-term reliable, but it wasn't really all that tunable, and so it's not the best. It just takes a lot more work to make it the trigger do anything but suck.
Yep.
And so
They have
but
like the Rammy or something like that.
Back
the
in the day,
Rammy.
they discontinued
Yeah,
it.
that
Yep.
was their teeny tiny gun. Somebody brought it into the armory and I shot it, and it was not. It just wasn't pleasant. I didn't.
It's
I
a small
just
gun,
didn't like.
small gun and pleasant.
It's a Glock 26 sized CZ75. Like
I mean,
it's a small gun.
Yeah, it's a nice gun, but it just didn't move the needle for me. I was just like, this doesn't. There is nothing about this gun that would compel me to want to get it over a better firearm like a Shield or the PO7. I still think the best compact firearms on the market is the PO7 if you want a hammer gun, or a Glock 19. Pick one of those two, and you'll never be unhappy, because they're just great firearms. But I mean,
The Rammy was the way it was that not even the most brand loyal would choose it for
They
their
didn't even want it.
subcompact. They're just like, I love you guys, but as Daryl Hall said, I can't go for that.
questions?
Telegram, head on to Telegram. You go there and ask us questions. We'll answer. Lots of people joining up. Telegram messaging app. Go in the settings and turn off so people can't add you to anything, and you can just chat with us. It's a good time. People hop in. Someone's always taking over the chat. Ron Davidson sending us AI generated pictures with bananas for scale. Because how are you supposed to tell what's going on in
What
the
kind
picture?
of pictures were these again?
What kind of picture? Like, I don't even know. How close is that bear? I don't even
That's
have
the PARAcast After Dark.
I don't have a banana for scale. So join us and see how big things are with a banana for scale. You know what, Kevin? That's what you need to do. You need to make 80% size quarters. That's what you do. So, when people are sending pictures to their people they're trying to impress, it always looks better because they're stacked up next to 80% quarters. Robert, go ahead.
From our good friend Moisha, what's the most disappointed you've ever been in a gun you've bought or tried? For example, you were expecting great things, but it was terrible.
The Bersa BP9 CC. Now, I started that sentence by saying the word Bersa. And all of you guys are going to be like, well, no shit, Tom, it's a Bersa. But I looked at stuff and I saw a bunch of reviews and people were like, the Bersa Thunder, the Walther PPK clone. People go there and they're like, you see reviews on these things, they're like, oh, dude, these things run like it only comes with one magazine, but it's got a much better trigger. It's got a slide stop. It works. Then you see credible people talk about it. They're like, that is amazing. It works. And then they came out with their Bersa Thunder, which was like a SIG P320 chassis system. And it was a Glock 19 cut in half. Now, this is before the 43 kind of 48 days. But so you had like a 3 1/4 inch barrel, 8-shot single stack magazine, full finger on the grip. So it was like a shield with the magazine extension. It had this super nice little trigger. And like the sights, here's where it starts to get weird. The rear was a Glock, but the front was like a SIG P series front sight. And so like if you're going to spend an extra $50 to get this thing shooting point of impact because you got to get like the right front sight to a rear that doesn't match. So anyway, I messed around with this thing. It felt good in the hand. It had a good trigger. That thing would jam the F up all the time. Like I couldn't get through it. 8 rounds. You couldn't even get through a magazine. And then like you're shooting it and then I'm like, all right, well, I'll just turn this in. And then you look and then it's just like, what? You guys don't have like a service center? You have some gunsmith in, North Carolina or something like that does service work for this. And like, I'm going to call up that gunsmith and he's going to say, oh, thank you, Mr. Nelson. We're going to send you a call tag and shit. He ain't sending that. He'll be like, all right, you can send it to me. I'll take a look at it. That's what you're going to get from that. So the Bersa BP9 CC, I was raped for $425 because I bought 2 extra magazines.
Do you still have it?
I can't sell it. Yeah, it's one of
Nobody
those.
wants to buy it.
I'll tell you exactly how I feel about that gun. When I got divorced and was moving and was going through the safe of guns I took with it, I literally looked at the ex-wife and said, "You can keep this one."
And she's like, over
That's
my dead
malicious,
body.
Tom.
No, she did. I was like, hey, like if you ever get in like trouble or whatever, you could sell this for like $80. I literally I touched it and I was just like, no,
Goodbye.
you can stay.
Goodbye, my old
Goodbye.
friend.
Because now I don't have to look at it in my safe and go, I wish I could sell this. Can't. It's like forgiveness. You forgive and then it no longer burdens you. Like a Bersa Thunder, you give it away and it no longer burdens you. It's like my brother-in-law that I gave my SIG P250 for. It's like, you need a gun. Like it shoots, it goes off. It's terrible. Like the trigger's bad and the grip's kind of weird, but it's got like a threaded barrel. Like you can have it. Like here you go. Like you can have it. Give them away. Those are
I don't think I have one. I don't think I have a gun I bought that I was super disappointed in. Not I don't know. Had good people around me, I guess. My first competition gun was the M&P, right? Like
Oh, yeah, that's
my
very good.
my high school rifle coach. I was talking to him about getting into this. He's like, "Oh, well, I've got you." I liked the M&Ps, like I'd felt them in the store. He's like, "You want to try one?" I'm like, "Sure." So he gave me the gun to go shoot in a competition, gave me a bunch of mags, hooked me up with the reloaded ammo he had done, and so I'm like, "Okay, sounds good." So that's what I bought. Kind of like my first pistol. Actually, my first pistol was actually a Taurus concealed carry, but it was like it ran great. Like
Yeah,
typical
like
concealed carry gun. I don't know.
I had some decent luck with some Taurus handguns. So when I bought that Bersa, it was like Brazil, Argentina.
It'll be fine.
What's the difference? You know, whatever. One has a bull on their logo. The other place eats more meat than any other country on earth. Like it, this. I
These
like
are my
cows. I like cows. It should run great. Yeah, the Taurus guns. The Taurus guns. Yeah,
because I
they'll
bought
function.
them
They'll
after
work.
kind of they'd gone through a bunch of revisions to, like their like restructuring, so they were a little more focused on the quality aspect of their kind of primary guns. So I don't know, seems fine, but no picky. What about you, Robert?
I had it was a Springfield XDS, and I bought it, and it was a great gun. Loved it. I love that gun. It shot well. It was a small subcompact gun, held 10 rounds, but it shot well. It recoiled great. The return was exceptional, and then it went through a recall, and I sent it to Springfield, and they returned it with a 12-pound trigger. And I know it was 12 pounds. It was actually a little bit greater than 12 pounds, but I put it on my scale, and the scale said, like overloaded or whatever. It topped out. And so I call up Springfield. They say send it back. I send it back. Comes back, and now it's 8 pounds. And this previously it was like 5-pound trigger or something like that. And so I call him back up, and I'm like, you guys gave me it, now this thing's now 8 pounds. And the guy's like, you can send it back, but we probably won't do anything. But the choice is yours.
Well, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
What a helpful statement to make.
Yeah.
You know.
And so I was just like, thank you, fuck off. And I found a kit, it was like Powder River Precision or something like that, had a
Oh
kit that
yeah.
brought it down to like 5 pounds or something like that, and then I sold the gun. And it has forever tainted my feelings towards Springfield as a company.
Didn't you buy a Prodigy?
Uh-huh. But
Okay.
that's
Just make
But
actually
sure.
he already knew he was spending $400 in parts when he bought that, Kevin.
He was
That's the
getting
difference.
rid of
It's like
all
he's
the parts that would potentially need service. He's like garbage.
he's already voiding the warranty on day one. So like since
well,
he's
actually, that's the funny thing. Like even the Prodigy, I bought that. I mean, admittedly, I bought that because I was mad at somebody, and so I bought it because I was mostly just rage buying. And I like the gun, and I thought that I would like it a lot more, but it kind of just sits around and doesn't do anything. And I keep looking at it like I should do something with it because I like the gun, but I have my Shadow 2s. And so the gun just sits there. And I don't know what to do with it. I keep thinking I want to go and do something with it. Like I'm going to come back to it.
Shoot it in the off season.
And I might. I need to go through and like change out the trigger. Somebody told me to get the different trigger ignition kit from
ECW or something like that.
something like that. Yeah, they said that actually makes the Prodigies really, really just cherry as far as like the trigger system and everything. And I might. I don't know, but it just doesn't. It's hard because it's a fine gun, and I like my shadows. I just shoot the shadows.
The XDS is the most revolutionary gun that no one remembers anymore. It literally was the gun that kicked off the entire single stack subcompact, and then that kicked off the micro comp. It was the micro compact single stack, and then that kicked off the micro compact double stack guns that everyone's buying today. And you know
That
how
gun
many
was a
people?
great gun.
Anybody remember the Springfield XDS and its prime? Not really. It's all gone. It's all gone
Yeah.
away.
Let's see, from Ron Davison. In winter, it's not practical to build big stages here. How do you keep stage designs fun when it's freezing out and there's snow on the ground? Actually, that's easy. Build smaller stages. People just want to shoot. Even when it's wintertime, people just want to come shoot. And just build fun, simple stages. You don't have to do tons of crazy things. People they're going to come out. It's going to be cold. They want to go back home as quickly as possible, but they still want to shoot a gun. They don't want to go to the indoor range. I mean, like
Don't beat yourself up, right? Like,
yeah,
put on
yeah,
the match.
just build small fun stages, 12, 15 rounds, little bits of movement here and there.
Yep.
You don't need to design nationals for the winter months. People
Multiple
just
small
want to
shooting
pull
areas.
a trigger.
Yeah, multiple small shooting box here. A shooting area that's 4 times the size of the start box. Put another box somewhere else. Block off stuff with a few walls and targets and barrels, and you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, funny enough, I mean, if you want to see your club grow, um, the stages are important, but they're actually less important than your ability to continuously be putting on a match at a consistent pace. If they know that every third Saturday is the match, even in the wintertime, that's going to actually grow your club more than anything. And along the way, you'll get people that'll come on, they'll help you build some, more energetic, fun stages in the wintertime. But just keep putting them together. I mean, put them on the ground, get them there. It doesn't matter. Just put stuff out. That's what I think.
It's just like this show, mediocre content, going on
Exactly.
400 and something episodes. Remember all the shows that have gone and dead that were great? Not us. Still digging.
Yeah, that's what we keep that bar low. Let's see here. Let's see from Andy. Or I don't see if he. Okay. From Andy Erickson, during our fall night match a few weeks ago, stages were simple with a few hiding spots for safety. Had a stage with at least one. Had a stage at last one with berm lit up work lights behind targets so you can't tell if there are no shoots or not. We were using highway reflective paint for false lines on the stage. Any ideas for stage lighting or props for a night match? What did we do at the farm, Tommy?
Flares were kind of thing that people would light flares, and that would kind of give you a falsely lit. But for competitive equity, that's not great because flares and their ability to project out evenly through different flares and at different times was not fantastic. Other things could do like lanterns or whatever that could be set out, but like
we did a strobe light once, right?
Yeah, we did a strobe light once. So some of that stuff, like obviously the power situation at the range can play a big part of that, just trying to get out there. And a lot of those other kind of like non-flashlights are going to be less consistent on how they're placed and how they're projecting as far as a competitive equity. But if you're just having a night match, it's most likely going to be unsanctioned. Like that stuff is still fun. Like it's fun to have it that way. And like a couple people might get boned over the course of the match, but like it's still fun. It's a lot of fun to kind of shoot like that. Like, having it like a little projection lantern and then having to use that instead of your flashlight. Because the other thing about night matches it's like there's a lot of people who prepare their gun setup well, but have nothing good as far as flashlights go. And whatever the funniest things about night matches is how everyone's thought the technique they thought they were going to use with a handheld flashlight or how they were going to operate their weapon mounted light goes to absolute dog shit in about half a stage where they're just like, oh, I thought I was going to hold this here in my hand like this. And it's just like, nope, your flashlight's pointing 17 feet away from where you're trying to aim, bro. Like it's.
I remember Wyatt McNeil.
Oh, in the
he
mouth.
showed up
in the mouth.
His mouth. And after one stage, he's like, nope, that's not working.
He started on a stage and he's like, I'm going to hold the flashlight in my mouth. And I'm going to aim. Because he had like this really bright pen light. And the flashlight kept pointing down lower, like at a 45-degree angle, so it wasn't illuminating anything. And this is in the iron sight days, right? So he tilts his chin up to get his light on the targets, but then can't see his sight because the light's in the way. where the sights were.
It was
And
hilarious.
it just became this absolute just dog shit of a show. And then you'd see people like, I'm gonna hold it under here and it will hold, or I'm gonna use this grip and then it's gonna hold. And then you quickly find out what everyone else found out, especially with like the FBI days with handheld lights, is like, oh, flashlight one hand, gun other hand. Like there was like the Harry's technique and everything like that, where you was kind of like a Weaver stance. And then you try like 5 rounds out of that, and you're like, this is horse shit. I'm not doing that. And then you're
Yep.
just like, I can shoot one-handed, and then you just like take the flashlight, you hold it out, and then you start shooting one-handed, and like your sights are illuminated, the target's illuminated, both things go where they're supposed to go, and you're like, oh, this is way better. But like, I would,
I had.
I
Oh, go ahead.
if you want to make a night match fun, handheld only. Handheld only is the funnest thing you can do because then you have like stuff like max traps, drop turners, and like Texas stars, and guys are shooting them one hand only, and they're gonna like the amount of techniques that you're gonna see be birthed, destroyed, left out to starve, and then other techniques come back. It's the best time. I think a handheld open division and a handheld like irons division, like that's all you need, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's a good match. From Alex Mansfield, why did Robert's squad at Red Rock Rumble only have 3 staff on it? It's That's a great question. Honestly, I think at the beginning, there was the idea that you would just have staff, and so the staff squads were slowly building themselves with the idea that they would actually balance out as the match. But then they let just normies, regular competitors come in, which then backfilled all the squads, so that by the time the match actually started, there was just a mismatch of what was available, and that's what I think. I I did an after action thing where I sent my thoughts on the match, and I was saying like if they do that again in the future, the best thing to do would be to, like, if there's 16 people on the squad, half of those people have to be staff, so that there's at least some balance in there, and then you never let the normal competitors go beyond that. But I think that's why.
Yep.
Let's see here. From Keith Stevenson, what majors do you guys think are worth an airline flight?
Kevin.
I mean, I haven't gone to too many, right? Like, but I would say the way that the org's been running Carry Optics Nationals is very interesting from like to go see where you stack up, right? Because nobody's getting filtered out to go shoot single stack or whatever. And not that there's anything wrong with any of those divisions, right? But when it's that dominant division and everybody is there, that's a cool experience, right? Like you get the opportunity because of the split day match that if you're not aiming for the top, right, like you can go watch some of those guys shoot. I don't know. I think that's valuable. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I've not been to too many matches that I would say, oh, it's worth the plane ticket too, right? So I don't know.
I think I'm going to be a little bit contrarian on that one. Then I actually don't think nationals, for what they charge and what you get outside of just seeing where you stack up as a competitor. I mean, like that's the only reason you'd go to nationals, is to see how you compare to the greatest Eric Raffel kind of situation. And in that regard, that's the value. As far as price and what you get, I don't think you necessarily get your money's worth on that. I think the best matches to travel to are the ones where you can do like 2 matches in a weekend. So you could shoot Tennessee and then go shoot the North Carolina match. I think those are tremendously fun. If you want to go shoot area matches generally are worth the money, because you're going to get a small amount of what of the heat that's going to be around the country, and so that's kind of cool. But the best matches that I've ever flown to shoot have always been ones where we did like a doubleheader weekend, and that was just for the memories. I mean, if you're going for like you want to see where you stack up, nationals obviously it, but for the memories, that doubleheader weekends that John and I do a bunch of, you just can't beat them. They're awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's part of what I think I like about nationals too, right? It's like you like how I've done it is that stay with some people that I know. That's part of why I like shooting, anyways, right? Go hang out with like-minded people who are passionate about the things I'm passionate about, and
The
so
shelters, they're all
fun to hang
comparing
out.
like Hormel chilies. What chili's your favorite, Jim?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so but you get that too. Like you get, it'd be interesting to do a doubleheader weekend like that because you get a little like a road trip vibe in there too, and
Yep.
it could be fun.
Yeah. All right, last question from Kevin Isaac. Do you think that because companies and people try to tune 2011s for speed competition, rather than some inherent reliability of the 2011 design? I don't understand that.
Oh, it was brought up that if you want to have a Glock for reliability, right? And I just was thinking about, I don't think there's a unreliable aspect of 2011s inherent in the design, right? I think it's more like, my opinion was it's probably more that the companies as well as people are tuning them for something different, right?
Well, there's
Sure.
the 1911 or 2011 design. There's a lot like six kind of gotten away from this because they've gotten more away from the actual like 1911 design. But there are tunable factors in those designs that companies do not want to spend a whole lot of time on. Just like extractor tuning and stuff like that, disco tuning. And so there is stuff like I would say that they're probably the most guns that would probably at least on a 1911's perspective, those are the guns that could come out of the factory and need more actually aftermarket support than say a Glock when you're only really kind of problem unless you get a lemon, you're only really dicking around with a Glock and making it worse than on some of the 1911 designs as you put them out there. But there is definitely a large contingent of people who get their guns and refuse to shoot them what I would call like mechanically like stock. Like this Beretta, it's got all the same springs, a guide rod, a metal guide rod from the plastic guide rod, a metal Beretta guide rod instead of a plastic guide rod. Not that big of a change, an extended magazine release. But the internal functions of how this gun is actually going to operate and recoil, and that's through its cycle of operations, is untouched from the way it came from the factory. Does anybody kind of like to do this? No, like it's just there's more guns
Well,
that show.
not in our world for sure.
Yeah, in our world, in our world where people chase another 200ths of a second on a split to get some part, and then leave 6 seconds in malfunctions on the range, like I don't know. Like I see some of the stuff, and I see like some of the like when you can see some of the trigger kits or like gas pedals and stuff like that, or especially in the world of spring tuning, like I like the feel of this, and it's just like, okay, like you like the feel of the gun going off, you don't like the feeling of losing. And so like there's a lot of stuff that happens. Like we see the way that people handle ammunition, like we instantly know, like, make it this side, you're doing this with the bullet wrong, you're doing that with the bullet wrong, this is causing you problems.
Yeah.
And what we refuse to do now is just like, well, I have some brand loyalty to this part or that part or whatever. So therefore, I am going to sink some of my emotional investment into having this and then that. And then that's going like, I got this trigger kit. And it's just like, okay, it's like a Glock trigger kit. It's like, I know one trigger kit that works. It's from Apex. And they have they have law enforcement departments that actually authorize that kit. This whatever Foxfire 9000 kit, like, dude, good fucking luck. Like, have fun with that. Like, unless you know what you're doing, like, have fun with that. Like, there are parts like guide rods and stuff like that. Like this thing's heavier. Like Kevin's got it. Like this thing's heavier, but as far as the function of the gun, it's not really going to do anything else, and you can leave the gun at a factory spring weight or whatever like that. But like, remember guys wouldn't shoot one round out of their gun back when milling the slide to make it lighter so it cycle better? Remember when that was a fad? What happened with all those guns?
So they're in Tom's gun safe, not being
Yeah,
touched.
I never had to send one of those off to be milled like that. But like you sit there and you go like, okay, what I don't understand is like um keeping the gun in battery, keeping the striker so it will actually fire, and some of those strikers are actually help keep the gun in battery, messing around with ridiculously light mainsprings and trigger return springs so that you can get this extra little bit more crisper of a trigger. It's just like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah, so
what are
maybe
we
it's more
doing?
of a dichotomy, right? Because I think you have the low end 2011, which it's just like it's built to a price, right? So
Yeah.
they're not doing extractor tuning. It's just it is what you get. And then you have the high end, like I'd say it's like the staccato, not that it's super high end, but they're targeting that like somebody wants to get the gun and it feels slick and nice, and there's like I think there's that happy medium if you're trying to make a case for the 2011 being, reliable enough to replace a Glock. I think there's probably a window there for it, but you've got, the marketplace is saying people don't want this; they want this tuned gun, or you've got the cheap side that's down here, and nobody's doing the in the middle kind of duty quality 2011. I think Staccato tried to do that, but I don't know how well they've done that.
But it's never going to be as reliable as a Glock.
Yeah.
I think the 1911, when it was originally designed, was the Glock
Mhm.
in the sense that it was designed so that you could take four 1911s, strip them all down, throw them in a box, shake it up, and the parts would all just drop into each other. And there's no doubt that over time, people started tuning them, trying to play with the extractors, doing this, and that exists. And even inside of our competition world, people want to play with their guns, and maybe that's just a part of us and what it is that we do. We want to just chase perfection and chase performance. You see that in every single sport that's ever created, and will ever become a thing. You're always going to be chasing performance. They're always going to be looking for that thing. And so that exists. One of the things, though, that I notice is like the guns that are coming out today. Canik, to me, is probably the best case example of a manufacturer standing on the shoulders of giants to create a firearm that is so damn good out of the box that you can basically just take it and put your optic on there and just take it right to the match.
Yep.
And it just runs. The Shadow 2, even at this point, the Shadow 2, you would change the hammer spring and recoil to spring to whatever your bullets that you're using as necessary. But that gun is pretty much great out of the box. The
Well,
Glock,
you could
the
take
Gen
one.
5s are great now.
You could take a Shadow 2 factory. Like the Shadow 2 factory with the sights that it has on, or like you got an optics ready one and put a plate on it and shot it. Like
I think you probably could if the
there's nothing
recoil
wrong with
springs
that
a
gun.
little bit. The recoil springs a little bit heavy, I think, for what we do. You'd probably want to get that solved. If you're shooting factory, the recoil spring's fine. Honestly, if you're shooting factory rounds, it'd be just fine.
Yeah, like the feeling would be slightly different, but that gun would be functionally fantastic to sit there and shoot. And I think like a lot of the 2011s, what would I say? They have a higher end. It's a lot easier to go a lot smoking faster with those things, but they definitely um the more racier the gun gets, the more kind of big brain you have to get around the gun and to
There's no
understand it.
there's no doubt that if you pick up a 2011 and you shoot it, that you walk away and you're like, this is a really nice gun. I mean, it shoots easy. It's a crisp, clean trigger. It fits in the hand really well. And so, yeah, it's a great firearm. There's a reason that so many people come in and they talk about how, the 1911 is the easiest gun for them to shoot because there's a lot of good things going for it. But I mean, I don't know that it makes it right or wrong. It's just kind of what you want to do. In our game, there's a point of diminishing returns, and you see that very, very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I'll say on it, it's like whenever I see a gun that has been heavily modified go south, Never have I talked to the shooter and they've been like, you know what I need to do? I need to put the factory parts back in it. What they generally do is like, you know what? I need to get this part for that because this one's not working. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
no, you could go do this. My eye-opening experience of changing spring rates in Glocks and shooting them from a rest with the same ammunition and watching the groups open and close as the lock time changed with the standard striker spring kind of brought me to the thing is like, oh, all these guys out of factory, who are handing them out to a bunch of cops and everything like that, like Glock, they kind of know what they're doing with their stuff to make them as peak reliable as they are, and and the
Yeah.
feel of it is secondary to the reliability, and sometimes we need to take the feel of the gun second to the reliability. Like get good at stage planning, get good at hitting the targets, and make
I
sure
know,
the
but
gun runs.
Tommy,
Oh,
you're right. You are right. Full stop. You are right. And that's the worst answer that you can give anybody because nobody wants to hear it.
nobody wants
That
to
means
hear this.
people have to get off their butt and go work. They want to know that if they put this newest latest weight or trigger or whatever in it, that's going to give them the next oomph to get into the GM. It's not sexy to tell people they have to work.
Well, like
Yeah, just go do your job.
I've shot so many damn stock pistols in stock form. Like I could probably name you 18, 20 pistols I shot in USPSA in like production or whatever in stock form or whatever, like with like just minimal changes like to the sights. And like some of the guns that I kept for a long time and shot like my Brigadier, like there would be minor changes in it. But like I was watching Stager this week and he was talking about like you learn to shoot this thing stock, like you can pretty much shoot anything. And
Sure.
a lot of the things which is happening in the sport, it's when I see the new shooters go into the 2011 game, right into LO, deck a whole thing out, or get a Shadow 2 that has to be Shadow 2 a little bit less so, or then you see open guns, and then you hand them something like this, like a USP or something like that, and you just see the full struggle bus come out with them trying to operate the thing. And it's just like, I get it that division requires the utmost of um, precision and speed, and everything has to be built for that set of course. But at some point, you have to go. I would like the gun to work the whole match. Shit, maybe like 3 matches in a row. Like that would be
Right.
awesome. Like every single one where we've had a dog shit match, like Kevin last year, and he's just like, "Oh, magazine springs. I should have gotten magazine springs." And how many places did that cost you, Kevin? Like
I don't know.
5 places?
I don't remember. Yeah, it was a lot.
Kevin's tried to kind of like banish that from his memory. Thanks for bringing up bad feelings.
But it's just like,
It's that funny thing. You see it on the internet where you have that graph chart where it starts over here on this side, and then it goes and it swoops all the way up, and then it comes right back down. And in the beginning, it's like stock gun is good, and then you get to the top of that hill, and it's like, no, I've got to go and change everything on the gun. And eventually, with time, you kind of start coming back to the place where you started of like, yeah, a stock gun, for the most part, is pretty damn good, and it's reliable. It's just guaranteed to work.
Well, and that goes right along the lines of your kind of level of skill, or how well balanced are your fundamentals, right?
Sure.
Like at Red Rock, you had that stage. It was weekend only, right? I was shooting with some good shooters, and you can see them out there, miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Slide lock reload, miss, and you're like, you don't practice strong hand weekend, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's absolutely true.
Every
At the end of the day, it always comes back to like how well can you execute the fundamentals at a high rate of speed consistently.
and how well can your firearm do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we all like, how well can your bullets do it? How well can your firearm do it? How well can you? That's the trifecta, and that's what make shooting competitions. That's what makes competitions great, because your gun's unsafe and goes off in the holster. Like, you bought it, asshole. You brought it to the range.
You should have known not to buy SIGs.
So you should have known not to buy it. But like, it's
Ben
the same.
Steger has been warning you for a long time. Why haven't you listened?
It's like, The reliability of the firearm is your responsibility. The reliability of your ammunition is your responsibility. And the skills you bring are your responsibility. So like keep them all as maximally in tuned with doing the job that they're required to do. And then as far as they going faster, like put that on you.
Yeah,
So,
Totally agree.
there you go.
and with that, we would like to remind you to let all your ex-spouses keep your Bersas. For Robert Wyatt, Kevin Isaac, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a low tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Toodles.